Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we are going to be having a fun community talk episode. We have a special guest from the 5th Trooper. But before I jump into that, I do want to remind you guys about the $100 Amazon gift card giveaway I'm running. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos, and that is running until the first week of September. But let's get all that out of the way. You don't even have to subscribe if you don't want to. It's just, hopefully you like the content here. But that being said, I'd like to introduce Jay Shelansky of the 5th Trooper. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. This is really great.
Absolutely. So I've been wanting to get to reach out to you guys and kind of link up, because I don't get to listen to a lot of podcasts, but yours is one that I have definitely at least tried to listen to, and also at work, it's one of the few sites that's not blocked for whatever reason through our proxy server, so I can actually listen from time to time. But
I wish I could say I had some deal with like the VPN companies or something to get our site unblocked, but I have no idea.
It has something to do. Even my own website is blocked. I can't even, that's why I have very few articles up on it. But
the power of the 5th Trooper.
You guys, very much so. So anybody who's not watching, you guys are a Legion-based podcast, but can you tell us a little bit more about the 5th Trooper?
Yeah, so, originally we just started as a podcast. There was just two of us. And what had happened was, we're huge minis fans, wargaming fans, Warhammer Fantasy, 40K. And so Star Wars Legion came out, and we were obsessed from the moment it came out. And I just found myself talking to my friends about it all the time, and like everybody at the store, and like we were like trying to like create all this, hubbub at the store about it so that people would play with us. And then one day we were just like, hey, let's start. Why don't we just start a podcast? I had some of the equipment, and so that's how it started. And it's going to be a year in about a week and a half.
That's awesome. I actually read that you guys were in September is going to be your 1-year anniversary. So congratulations. Yeah. Or early congratulations.
Yeah, well, thanks. And it's odd because like our episode numbers, like we're past 52 already because we had like some special edition episodes and stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we're coming up on a year, and actually, the last few months, maybe about 6 months, have been pretty big for us. We brought over. I've always been producing the Notorious Scoundrels podcast, which is another Legion podcast, but we actually brought them into the fold as part of the 5th Trooper Network. And then also one of the guys on Notorious Scoundrels, Kyle Dornbos, he did Never Tell Me the Odds blog, which was, he did a lot of like numbers crunching for Legion, and, he created the dice tool and all that stuff. And so we actually brought him in too. So all of that stuff is condensed now into the 5th Trooper Network. And so like the last 6 months have just been amazing. Like we've been expanding like crazy and just trying to become like, a really good top-notch source for Legion content.
It really seems that way. I think, from what I've been able to see, you guys also had a lot of really great coverage at Adepticon.
Yes.
And I saw a little bit of that. I wasn't able to watch as much as I wanted to, but it was a really nice setup, you guys. You obviously have, you got your stuff together for sure. How was Adepticon, by the way?
So Adepticon was amazing. Actually, to be completely honest, I have mixed feelings.
Okay.
Because I was streaming, and so like that was my complete focus at Adepticon, was streaming, and like I think I was talking for like 36 hours straight or something like that.
Yeah.
And so where the mixed feelings come in is I really wanted to play, because that was the last chance for Worlds and all that stuff. And so and I saw my friends and all the other players playing, and I did get a little jealous about not being able to play, but it was an amazing experience overall.
I feel very similar. I have not ever been to Adepticon yet, but the last 2 years I've been able to go to Gen Con, and I was judging in the team tournament, and I'm like walking around. I get to walk around and talk to people, which is great, and I love that. But it would be really cool to play now, especially with the Clone Wars that are out now. And some people were, they had some Clone Wars core sets. Some people were able to, even put them together. And I saw somebody playing with the Clone Wars.
Man,
and like,
that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, clones though, not droids, because I think, trying to assemble those on the spot would have been a little tough.
Yeah, no, just the whole afternoon. That's
Yeah.
all. It would have been fine.
Yeah. So, which is actually kind of a good segue into Gen Con a little bit. Now,
Yeah.
I think you guys had some folks on the ground there. You were able to get
Yep.
yourself some core sets for Clone Wars, and have you gotten any battles in yet? Or
Yeah.
partial
So,
ones?
yeah. Well, so I have 2 core sets. One came before the other one, and we just put together, what was the base in the core set, and my co-host and I, we did get to put minis down on the board and get a game in. It was a lot of fun. And then actually a couple weeks ago locally we had a store tournament, and so I sent a note out to like all our participants that were going to be at the store tournament. I said, hey, would you guys be okay if I tried to field a clone army for the tournament? And so of course everyone was like, oh yeah, I want to see how they play, and we're freaking out.
Yeah.
And so I think I ended up with it was like 8 activations.
Clones are expensive.
Yeah.
Especially if you put I like to put frag grenades on them, so this way they get that surge, and yeah, but like they become expensive when you really add everything, and yeah, and then the phase 2 clones are going to be even more expensive.
Yes. But yeah, I liked playing with clones. I think inherently I'm going to be a droids player, just because I'm an old orcs and goblins player from Warhammer Fantasy. So just like the whole chaos behind the droids and the AI attack thing, like if you don't give them order token, yeah.
I love that these 2 new factions have like an identity, and I feel like that leaves like a little bit of an absence for like the Rebels and the Empire, and that like there's so similar. I mean, you can kind of find an identity. Oh well, you know what? Stormtroopers, they have surge to hit. So they almost always have that, and Rebels always have surge to defense. And that's maybe their identity. But I'm like, yeah, but that's not as flavorful as the Clone Wars have, right? So, it's like it makes me really excited for what they have coming next for Rebels, and I have no idea, and it's like I feel like maybe the focus should be Clone Wars for at least a couple of months, and then but it's exciting.
Well, and it's interesting, a bunch of us were talking, and I was just I kind of just said out loud, like I can't believe how excited I am right now for the game. Like I'm more excited now than I was when it was first announced.
I'm very close to that, because when Legion was first announced, with my background in X-Wing, I was always campaigning for an X-Wing ground game. And so I thought Legion was going to be that ground game. I thought the scale was going to be smaller. I didn't think the minis were going to be. I thought maybe a 10mm game, 15mm game.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And so that I really wanted AT-ATs on the ground, like marching to do the Battle of Hoth, and
who doesn't? Yeah.
I mean, I'll still take it in Legion. It's going to be absurd, but I would still take it. But realistically, that doesn't seem likely unless it's a terrain piece. So, but once I wrapped my head around the scale, and I was like, okay, these minis are better quality, and all of that. Now I got really hyped up for it. But now, with having 4 factions, you really have a lot more. Like, I don't know what I'm going to face. Let me build. Maybe I should bring ion weapons now. Like you have no idea.
I know, those seem so much more practical now.
Yeah,
and like the comms jammer too. That's the other one.
Exactly.
You're like, oh snap, that makes a lot more sense now.
It makes me wonder if they had a plan for that all along, or if it was just kind of a happy coincidence, and maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, let's give them the credit. Sure, they had it planned all along.
They've done a very good job so far. Yes. So we were talking a little bit about Gen Con. Now, there was a lot of new stuff announced for Legion at Gen Con. And I mean, as a content creator, I felt almost overwhelmed. I'm like, there's too much to talk about. So, like, what are your takeaways? Like, what were you maybe most excited about from Gen Con?
Yeah, so I think the first things, of course, were the tanks for Clone Wars. Like, that was, I mean, as soon as I knew, we knew as a collective that they were going to do Clone Wars, I was just like, tanks, I can't wait for all the toys. And then when they had like transport on the Empire tank and the land speeder, I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get that big droid transporter, we're gonna get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought was gonna be at the in-flight report. Like, I don't know why in my head I was like,
you're talking about the one that comes out and drops all of the B1s.
Yeah.
I feel like they might be able to do that, but not as a unit on the battlefield, like maybe as a terrain piece, but it
Yeah.
could be like a magnetized thing where it actually serves as a storage device. Like you
Right,
transport your army in it. Like,
oh my god, that would be amazing. I know.
See, this is what the Clone Wars does. It gets you really excited talking about it.
Well, and I think that you know, I'm not gonna go into liking or hating the prequels or anything like that, but whatever your feeling is, there's tons of toys in the prequels, so that's the most exciting part.
I feel like the prequels were built a lot better to support wargaming, especially modern wargaming, and that goes for Armada as well. Like the space battles were way more like tactical in the prequels, and especially in the Clone Wars cartoon than in the original trilogy, because they had a lot more time. And I will say, as someone approaching 40 who grew up with just the classic trilogy, was not super crazy about the prequels, but I think time has been kind to them. Prequel memes have definitely helped my appreciation of the prequels. So they've grown on me. And once Disney Plus comes out, I'm going to have them streaming on the other monitor, and I'm going to rewatch them again, and I'm going to really probably watch it and enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, well, and I would agree with that. Like, my son and I, we tried to watch it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, you know what? Now with like Legion and everything, I'm like, that's kind of what I was thinking the whole time I was watching this time. I'm like, oh, that could be part of Legion. Oh, this could, so that made it more exciting for me, I think.
Well, how many of like adults, and I'll say like probably 30 somethings and up, when they were younger and they were exposed to Star Wars, also had that wealth of Star Wars toys to back up their fandom, right? And as they grew up, they didn't really kind of dive into the prequel toys as much. I mean, there were some, but it wasn't as flushed out, and it weren't as accessible. And a lot of them were geared towards kids, like the dolls and the Jar Jar Binks stuff, and they were kind of geared towards. I think like I missed the boat completely on prequel toys. So outside of maybe a Darth Maul figure that I picked up, but yeah, so it's like. I feel like that was something that we all missed, and this is kind of a way to like revitalize that, and I think a lot of people will have a new appreciation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, by the time the prequels started coming out, I was already in high school, nearing mid to late high school. So, it was kind of too late for toys. I was still obsessed with Star Wars, but I'm not gonna go at that. I was a kid trying to prove how cool I was to everybody, so I wasn't gonna go buy a bunch of Star Wars toys.
You're a lot less likely to. Yeah, I know. I hear you. So we had another interesting thing come out of Gen Con with the early release of some other expansions, like the Dewback, for example, which led to the Dewbackle, and with the funny base. Did you guys manage to get any of those? Or?
I did. Yeah, I got two of the Dewbacks with the funny bases, and luckily I never really played ATRT, so I just popped those out and took the bases. So, so I got mine fixed quick. Nice. But
I didn't even realize until I got back and did an unboxing video, and I caught some people like on the Legion Discord, like, tagging me and be like, how come you didn't even notice that this was the wrong base? And I'm like, well, I said it was a big base, right. but no, it confuses me so much, just because like I was working all of Gen Con. Almost all of Gen Con, and so I get back and I'm just constantly. I think my brain was just fried by that point, and so I'm like, "Hey, you know what? Look, guys, they're at speed 1, but look, I mean, with this big base, they could go pretty far.
They're gonna make it all the way across.
It's gonna be fine, guys. Don't worry about it." And then I was like, "Oh, of course." So
I think it's funny because I think in the history of Legion, when we look back, the whole debacle is going to be more fun than the actual Dewbacks on the table. So
it'll definitely be. I could see there being T-shirts about it or something like that.
Oh, let me tell you, I have designed a T-shirt that we will be giving to our Patreon members.
Excellent. Yes. Definitely. So if you're interested in the shenanigans, check out and we'll put links in the description below to Fifth Trooper Podcast, as well as all of their we'll put all the links down there. So
I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we also got some new commanders. We got Rex and Dooku that look a lot of fun. I think Dooku is going to be really, really powerful, and maybe just not as mobile without any kind of relentless. You'll have to be more careful, but once you he's more like, I feel like he's like saying, "Come to me," and die.
I
And
thought it was
whereas,
an interesting choice. Because so let's look. If we look at the Leia Veers release, right? They're both non-Force users, more general type, and I think you get that with Rex a little bit. But then with Dooku, you're like, oh, now okay, so now they technically not that Grievous is a Jedi, but they have two lightsaber wielding, So it
and two
seems
expensive commanders too.
yes, yeah,
Because Grievous is 195 or somewhere, like he's approaching 200 points.
Yeah.
And the numbers escape me on the off the cuff, but yeah, he's up there. And especially once you equip them with upgrades or Grievous's blaster or,
Right.
or what have you. Yeah, so that really was a surprise to me and makes me wonder who will be the inevitable cheap commander for a separate, or maybe they won't. Maybe that will be part of their shtick, is that maybe they don't get. I mean, I imagine they'll have a generic droid because they have those tactical droids. So
Yes.
I'm sure they'll get one eventually, but that might be part of their shtick, is that they don't get that like 90 to 100 point, support commander.
Well, and I don't know from a point perspective. I think you need them from a support perspective, but from a point perspective, the droids are so cheap. I don't think you're really going to sweat it too much.
Well, also that probably helps people who are on a budget too, because I'm like, hey, look, I need to fill out 800 points, but I really don't want to have to buy 3 core sets and and then also a tank, just to fill out 800 points. And so by having the commanders be able to have the option to use 250 points or something like that, that's like, because that's the problem right now. If you've got, like you said, you've got 2 core sets, that I don't believe that comes up to 800 points. You've still got a big chunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right, you could fill out, I think with droids you can get all 6 of the core, plus you would need Grievous and one of the droidicas, I think, if you were just working off core set, and you can use every single extra mini in the droids, and I think you're still at like 90 or something like that. And so it's crazy.
Yeah. So
I think it's good though. I think it's freedom.
Oh, I love having the freedom, and I love the big fun, the big nasty commanders and stuff. They're just the more menacing they are, the more fun I think that inevitably leads itself to. And then then we got our other core units with the Phase 2 clone troopers and the B2s, the super battle droids. Which out of those two, I was thinking the B2s were more impressive with armor, which I was really surprised by. What was your takeaway from those guys?
Yeah, same. And it was funny because we got a little pushback because I was like, oh, I didn't, and maybe this is my fault, but like the B2s, I didn't really see them as like core units. I thought maybe they were going to be like special forces. And then everyone's like, well, no, you see those all the time. And I was like, all right. I mean,
they weren't in episode 1, so you didn't see them all the time. But yeah.
Right. And so, but yeah, no, I am more impressed with the droids than I am with the clones. And I think just because, like we just said, the freedom of the points, so we're going to have a lot of options and a lot of things that we could put together. But then also just, I don't know, they just seem more dynamic. Where the clones just seem more the same that we've seen, I guess. It's just, clones are like a combination of the two, right?
Well, one thing they definitely are. I agree with that. They have, like, in some ways they're like the best of both worlds at a premium for cost. But the thing that really I like, because I have done one battle report with clones so far. I haven't got to really use the droids yet though, because I only got the 1 core set. Is that I'm thinking, like, and I proxied stormtroopers for clones, so but I'll probably proxy something else for droids. Yeah. Maybe Ninja Turtles or something. But no, with the clone's ability to share green tokens is really spectacular, and that's what surprised me so much about Rex, is him being able to really add a bunch of aim tokens. Like, he doesn't even have to shoot, and when he shoots, it's good, but he can potentially just by himself without any upgrades hand out 2 aim tokens to people and move twice. And then potentially even more than that, because I believe there's an upgrade coming that can even give him a higher tactical value. It's crazy. It's crazy how good he is for 90 points. And that makes me think, what other upgrades are they going to give, and what are the command cards going to look like for these guys? That's
it's going to be so much fun because, like you said, they all have their kind of distinct personalities, where like the clones are just going to be this odd, like, you're going to field them, and I think when you first put them on the field, you're going to feel like, oh, I don't know if I brought enough activations. But then they're like this murder ball that just is going to go across across the battlefield, just like
Yeah.
decimating stuff. And then droids, I wrote an article about this where I think when you first start putting droids together and putting them on the field, it's going to be overwhelming for you because there's just going to be so much going on. But I think once you're able to perfect it and perfect, like, there's a way to do the order activation that you can get a perfect order activation every turn. You're going to, and you can perfect that, and your opponent isn't really as aware of it as you are. I think that's where you're going to benefit, is just like knowing who's activating, knowing hey, I can take some hits on these droid units and it's going to be okay. Like that was always the thing with orcs and goblins back in Warhammer Fantasy. Like you'd come up with something, and let's say you wiped out half my goblins, I'd be like, that's all right, I still have half, and they were worth nothing.
Yeah.
So it's completely fine.
I guess that is a good point, and especially with the B1s, for example, as long as you're keeping that heavy weapon alive, and you've got like 8 hit points now. So yeah, as long as you keep the heavy weapon alive, you're still going to have most of your probably the good dice,
right?
And that chain too, which is actually going to be, considering I think like the B2s are better than the Phase 2 clone troopers, because the Phase 2s just seem like a marginal upgrade for a whole lot more points. But the fact that the B2s might throw a wrench in your system, like if you're trying to daisy chain all your B1s and you've got a B2 in there, he doesn't have that same ability. So maybe that's part of the, like, and that kind of balance is very different than I think what we've seen before, where everything was kind of, in a bubble, everything worked, but you didn't need it to have cohesiveness with the rest of your squad as much as you do here, which is another thing, another feather in the hat for Rex, because he's also a clone. So I know. Again, I can talk about this for hours, but there's more things. So we could. I do want to talk about the tanks a little bit, because they were. I agree with you. You said that they were one of your biggest takeaway, and I think both literally and metaphorically they were definitely my biggest takeaway. And in looking at them in the case, I was like, wait a second, that base. I thought it was just going to be like a huge base. No, I don't know what name they're going to give that base, because you can't. What's huger than huge? You know, a mammoth base or something. And the thing is, it's not even going to be the biggest base we ever see. Will the ATT or something like that?
Right.
So I just call it the volleyball base, because it kind of reminds me of a volleyball. But it's got the notches on the sides, so they can strafe.
Right.
And I don't know if we have all the rules for strafe yet, but I'm assuming it's like going to be a 1-speed move, just like a reverse, basically a non-standard move. But I'm looking at those. First off, they look beautiful. But my question for you is, with a base that big, what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on how people are designing their battlefields as far as terrain placement and like areas and stuff?
Yeah, and it's funny because we as a group have been talking about where the game is now. So let's take out clones and droids for a second. But where the game is now, we as competitive players are like, we need more terrain. Like 25% is not enough. Like it's got to go 35, maybe 40% of the table should be terrain. But you're absolutely right with that. Like right now, if you go to 35 or 40%, the occupier that's out now for the Empire, that struggles on a board. Today. So I mean, I can't even imagine, unless they have something that we don't know about yet that's kind of built into those tanks that allows them to maybe hover over stuff or
crush or destroy terrain.
Right.
Like that would be pretty cool. I always fantasized when the game was younger, especially when Darth Vader was one of the only commanders we ever played, of being able to like pick up a barricade and force throw it at somebody. So I would love the ability to interact and like move terrain, which is actually something that the new Marvel game, Crisis Protocol,
is
going to have, which really excites me. And I hope that like Atomic Mass Games and FFG are kind of doing a lot of this with each other, because there's a big part of me that wants to do hybrids and like take Iron Man and Captain America against Grievous and Obi-Wan Kenobi in some kind of ultimate crazy mashup,
Well, it's all Disney, so maybe
it may be possible. I don't think it'll be overtly possible, and maybe it'll be like, all right, the rules are similar enough where a homebrew wouldn't be too hard, and that's probably...
So you were at Gen Con, so did you get a close-up look at the Marvel stuff? Because from what I saw from some of the videos and stuff, that they had similar movement templates.
The movement
and stuff,
templates
right?
are the same, and yes, I did. I actually got I think the first video for Crisis Protocol, which was really nice because
Yeah.
I actually remembered to use my media badge this time, and I forgot last year, so I missed out on all the stuff. But yes, I got a really good first look. I uploaded it like that first night, but they didn't have all the tools out, so I had to go back like in the following days and get the more of the tutorial. But the biggest difference is that there's only one type of die, and it has blocks and hits on it, and it's got some wilds that can serve as both. But you can just you can either have everybody use their own respective dice, and you use what's applicable to you. Like if you're defending in your Marvel, you roll your Universal die, and if you're defending in your Star Wars, you roll your Legion die. I don't know, but we'll have to see, because it may be, some people will do it.
Yeah, somebody will come up with a homebrew thing for that. Yeah. That'd be amazing.
There may be a new type of die altogether that just uses normal D8s, and 1 through 8 equals this and that, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the tanks do look absolutely gorgeous, and I wonder how long they're going to take to put together, because Alex Davey did confirm that those are all going to be on sprues. So
I don't know. I think, I mean, you've had, in your unboxing, you actually did a second video, right, where you're putting up some of them together as well. I did the
Droidekas and a B1. I didn't put Grievous together, though. I wanted to take my time and just do that for me.
Yeah.
So
I felt like he was the easiest.
I think so.
Out of all of them. We did an unboxing video, too. And at the end, I put together Grievous on camera, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is here, and it seemed pretty straightforward. And I was like, so that was the first one I put together, and I was like, this is going to be fine. And then I started putting the B1s together, and I was like, oh boy, like the heads are really tough. And, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, you must not have done, like, yeah, we've all done it on sprues. There's just, the B1s are just very delicate and small, and they have very specific ways that they fit in sometimes.
Yeah,
and
the hands go into the guns. Like, you got to do the hands on the guns first. Let them get like 90% dry, and then fit them to the shoulders. And I'm using super glue the whole time, so I had lots of bits sticking up.
Me too.
I know they say, get rubber, get plastic cement, get the special, and like, yeah, well, that's easier said than done, because I don't have a store around me that sells that, so I have to order it online.
Yeah.
But I want to put my droids together tonight, so if I order it online, I'll get it next week. You know what? Screw that. Right. I'm going to put them together tonight.
Well, the thing I found in the past, like especially with Warhammer, and it seems like they're going this way with Legion, like if you want to make changes to those droids that you put together with the plastic fuse glue, good luck, because that's never coming apart.
Right, it fuses them together, whereas super glue, you can just stick it in the freezer and it comes right off. Or a lot of times you can just pull it and it'll come right off.
Or use like an X-Acto knife and just loosen it up. So that's my only reason that I generally use super glues, because I was like, well, I don't know what the future is going to be, so I really don't want this fused together and have to buy a whole nother unit.
That's not a bad point. Also, I had a thing where one of my kids broke all my B1s. Yeah, I had just assembled all of them, and because I did get a B1 expansion, so I have 3 full units, and I just glued them all together, and I left all my, like, with this big old folder that had, and basically it was the first day of school. I forgot that it was the first day of school, and I left them all out in the garage in a compromised position because I thought nobody was going out there, and they broke them all. And the type of glue I used allowed a lot of them to go back together, because a lot of them just broke right at the seams. So some of them were broken really bad, but some of them came back together just like that. But I will say, I was able to fix them. I got some putty, was able to fix them. They're all back. Some of them look a little funny because some of them bent instead of breaking.
They've been in battle. It'll be fine.
It's fine. It's fine. And then when I'm able to get more, maybe I'll take these, and because when they're broken, they look like they would be great for basing material for the clones, the stepping on droid heads. Yeah. Oh my gosh! So you're getting a lot of value for your stuff. But I don't think that would be the same thing if I had molded them together, because then they'd be shattered at really weird spots.
Yeah. So how do you feel about them moving to the hard plastics? Like, where's your head at on that?
I was not a 40K player. I did play a little bit of, or I started into Kill Team a little bit. And that's actually going to segue into the next thing I want to talk about. But it got me, I picked up one of like the 40K sprue cutters. So I have a really good sprue cutter, and as much as regular wire cutters will do it, that sprue cutter is amazing. The Games Workshop one, it's really, really good. But I got some experience actually following directions and assembling from a sprue. And when I was really little, I used to build models with my dad, so I had some experience with it. But so this one, I didn't think it was that hard. But I agree with you. The B1s are the hardest part, and a lot of that is because of the hands only want to fit in that certain way. And I feel like it's like I'm really looking forward to the super battle droids because they are all like this, so you could be able to do whatever you want with them. Or actually, no, they're like this, right? The wrist rockets, but
it's interesting. You know, like I was, I'm 50-50. Like I love the hard plastics, and I love the ability to like put things together in ways that you want to. But the thing I was so excited about at Legion when it first came out was, I tend to drop my miniatures frequently, and so like when the soft plastic ones drop on the floor, all good, no worries. You know, maybe your lightsaber gets bent and you just bend it back, no big deal. But with hard plastics, they tend to pop a little bit more and fall apart. So that, for people watching, that's just something to look out for.
I have dropped more than a few minis, and and it's tough because like some of the ones I've ordered from like Mel Miniatures on Shapeways and stuff, I ordered. He had done a Commander Crabbok one. It was an April Fool's joke, but it's like he's got lightsaber nunchucks and everything, and so I ordered an extra one because I wanted to try and paint them up differently. And I had this one, and I thought it was like perfect, and I was so pleased with it. And then I dropped it, and it didn't just break, but it shattered into about 47 pieces. So I was like, oh, I'm devastated. So I try not to drop stuff anymore, but it's inevitable. And instead of dropping things, I had my kids drop stuff on the minis too.
Yes, yeah.
So I wanted to kind of transition into something else, but before I get into that, the last thing I want to talk about is the Imperial Bunker. I noticed on one of your last podcasts you were not a fan of this, right?
No.
So let's talk about the Imperial Bunker a little bit because I'm leading into something, but it's like $75 for one piece of terrain.
Yep.
And it's got like a 2-part scenario that goes with it, which is kind of cool. Some people will really like the scenarios.
Sure.
But I think the larger and the competitive people may not really care about the scenarios as much. So you have this interior piece. Now the roof comes off. Yeah. You've got some stuff, so you can play some interior combat, but the game isn't built really for interior combat.
Right.
So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I hate it. Okay. Number one, and just as much as I hated the downed ATST. And here's the reason. It's because it doesn't, the whole sales pitch, right, for new players coming in, when I sell a new player is, they'll be like, I don't know if I could get into a minis game. I know they're really expensive. And I go, no, not Legion. Legion's very reasonable, comparatively speaking, to other miniature games, right? But I'm seeing this price creep start to happen, which we knew was inevitable. The hard plastics, tariffs, there's all these different things, why that's happening. Right. My biggest problem is that the prices on the downed ATST and the bunker just seem extreme. Yeah, for what they are. Like it doesn't, like, it literally does nothing for you outside of a piece of terrain on your table, which you could have built for less than half of that, maybe a quarter of that, or if you're going to do the scenarios, that's great, but you're paying $70 for cards. Yeah. So it just seems odd. And it feels, and listen, I love FFG, so I generally don't disparage them, but this one just feels like a money grab to me, so I don't like it.
I think that's fair. I think people in the content creation business need to be able to push back when something doesn't seem right, because I think it also goes a long way for your credibility. This way, when you are praising something, they know it's genuine. And I feel the same way. I'm a big fan of FFG, and I usually defend most of their decisions, but some things I can't defend. And the price for this one I agree with you, it does seem disproportionate, but I am leading into where I think they may be going with this. So I think interior combat is going to become more important. And I think, once we see better pictures of like the inside and maybe the detail in there will be where the money is. Maybe it's really exquisitely sculpted on the inside. Maybe even something else that comes with it that they haven't revealed yet. That's certainly possible. Like maybe just like the drop escape pod has an R2 and 3PO, maybe this one has like a mouse droid or something else that the Imperials can use. So maybe you're getting something else, but I don't want to get people's hopes up because that's probably not the case.
Right.
But who knows, right? But the thing is, like, I feel like interior combat may be a thing. So why I say that is we just had a live stream with Alex Davey, and he was, they were doing the whole, let's assemble the Legion core set. And well, one of the things that Alex Davey, and you guys know because you guys have access to Luke Eddy and Alex Davey from time to time. They've done, I think, multiple interviews with you guys, which is another reason you guys should definitely check out Fifth Trooper, because they have amazing content and they're able to get better access than I can get to the actual people that make the game. So that's a really good pro for you guys. But Alex Davey tends to leak stuff. And maybe I don't want to use the word leak, because leak has a definitely negative connotation. When Alex does it, it's very fun, and he's
and to give your audience an example, it doesn't matter now because we know what Clone Wars is and what the clones do and everything. But if you go back to Adepticon, they did the in-flight report at Adepticon and the announced Clone Wars there, and then we had Alex on for maybe 2 or 3 hours on our live stream when we were doing the things, and he was just like, oh yeah, and they share green tokens, but no one had known that yet, and so we were all sitting there going, like, what do we do?
That was a really fun time, and I will tell you, I had, since they're out now, I can say I had play tested the clones, and so it was a lot of stuff that I knew, and I was like, why is he saying this? He's not supposed to be saying this.
It was great. I mean, from my perspective, it was wonderful.
Yeah, and I remember watching that and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to get him. I need to get Alex Davey, but yeah. So he had. I was actually in their live stream asking a bunch of questions, and I got a couple answered. But one of them, I said, what is the chance that you guys will do, some smaller stuff, like, and I kind of equate it to Kill Team, the way 40K has the big thing, and then they came out with this really small subset where you can just have like 4 or 5 guys or something like that, and I always thought that would be a good idea for Legion. Plus, it really helps sell new players on that. Oh, you only need to buy one thing of stormtroopers, and you can just have them all be, stormtroopers, and that's your whole squad. You control each one individually. But different than that, or what about just a hero-only mode or something like that? So I asked kind of both of those at the same question, and so Alex leads in with this really eyebrow kind of like, hey now, you guys just stay tuned, like with the winky face. If he were an emoji, he would have been a winky face, but it was Alex Davey. So it was great. But the funny thing was the camera was off of him. So then, and I think FFG was cool with it, because they're like, hey, put the camera back on Alex, and he's like, winky, wink, wink, So that kind of tells us that, hey, something, maybe some new types of play, some new formats maybe in the works right now. And if so, if you've got a smaller format, I think interior terrain will work much better for that. You won't have to fit 8 battle droids all moving together in cohesion inside this small room. You can just bring Dooku inside this small room and face off against Obi-Wan, or like 2 guys, like a 2v2 or something like that. And so maybe that's where they're going with this Imperial bunker. Maybe that's, maybe it will be very important for that, and it might even, if it does come with something else, it may come with some rules for that mode or some cards that are used with that mode, so you may be getting more than what they showed.
Well, and I mean, just purely from a business perspective, right? You have a successful property that's doing well. What we're concerned about it generally is the competitive field, but they're selling 10 times the number of players that are in competitive. So what are these people doing with all this Star Wars Legion stuff, right? They're playing at home. They're just playing small scale stuff. They're playing homebrew stuff, or like, Imperial Discipline blog, Kevin, he put out that 500 point, homebrew game, right? And so I think you have all these people at home that are doing these games. So from a business perspective, of course, why I would put out as many variations on the same game as I could, so that more people are interested, more people are buying. I mean, it's the same thing Games Workshop does, right? They have Kill Team, they have Blood Bowl, they have
Warcry just came out now.
The Shadespire stuff, right? Like all of that stuff. Like it's just different variations on the same game. It's
one of the reasons X-Wing is so phenomenally successful, is because when it came out, it had this $30 entry fee to get your core set. And people were like, wait, I can get into mini wargaming for $30? It'd be the same thing as buying a Stormtrooper box and like a rules supplement or something, like, or maybe like a special, and I think they should call it Strike Team, because that's the Endor thing. Han built a strike team to go down there, right?
Yep.
It's like it's thematically appropriate, and of course that's not unsolicited feedback to FFG. We're all getting it from Star Wars, so if they do call it that, they got it from Return of the Jedi, not from me.
But they didn't steal it from you.
Of course. It just makes sense, right? So if they did come up with like a Strike Team format, like, that's just perfect, and that's getting so many more people in, because somebody buys one strike team. All right, I bought my stormtroopers. Oh, you know what? Now I think I want to buy, let me buy some Imperial Royal Guard.
Yep.
And then next month, Death Troopers. All right, I got to get Death Troopers. Now you got 3 units. Hey, you're not that far off from building a whole army. Split a core set with your friend who bought some Rebel stuff. Now you guys are good to go. Now you're playing.
Yep.
And that's what almost got me to play full-blown 40K. My biggest problem was I wasn't a fan of how many times you had to roll to see if you hit, and I really do prefer Legion's simplicity in the rules. It's just you roll one time, and that's how much damage you do.
Well, and that's, I think we're preaching to the choir, right? I'm assuming most of your audience plays, but that's how we explain it. Like, where I'm in upstate New York, and most of the people up here all play 40K or Age of Sigmar, and so everyone's interested now, though, when the Clone Wars are coming in, like, well, how is it compared to Warhammer? And I'm like, take the rules, simplify them, mix in X-Wing, and that's it, and you're ready to go. And and I think that opens eyes, and I'm like, and all the movement and range templates and the dice are all included, like, it's just there, and you're ready to go.
You don't need a tape measure, you absolutely don't. No, that is a great thing, and so I hope they do something like that. I have my heart set on it, and also you could play on a 3x3, which makes if it becomes popular and it takes off, and there becomes a tournament format for that, you can get a lot more places can now be eligible to host tournaments, because you don't need these giant tables. It can be quicker to play. The list of pros just keeps going on, and there's no list of cons, I don't think.
Well, let me ask you this. So this is something we've speculated for a long time. Like, I don't think when they originally designed this game, I don't believe that they thought the 4x6 800 point was going to take off. I think this game was designed for a 3x3.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
I'm not sure, because this game came out right after Rune Wars, and I did play Rune Wars and also Armada at the same time, which are both 6x3. So they had 2 6x3. Well, technically 3, because X-Wing had its epic format. Now, X-Wing's epic format didn't do very good because of reasons, but because I think the reason was the 3x3 was already competitive, and I don't want to get too much off topic, but
people don't like change.
They had two 6x3 games already, and when Legion first came out, like in the rulebook, they also had the 6x4 1600 Grand Army, and we've done that a couple of times. It takes a long time, but it's fun. So I think it was kind of the other way around. They didn't think the Grand Army would be played as much. That's why there were so few rules. There's like maybe 2 paragraphs of rules for it, whereas everything else, I feel like it was, because all the objectives are built for a 6x3. So I don't know if 3x3 was really. I mean, it was in the demo. The demos are all 3x3. If you go to any convention, they're teaching it on a 3x3 for the most part, because. But it's really condensed. Like, there's no suppression in most of the demos. You're just teaching people the basics. But I feel like it works either way.
And I totally hear and see what you're saying. But the question comes in from, I think, the rule set is because of the rounds, the number of rounds. And in the competitive scene, anyways, for those of you who aren't in the competitive scene, until very recently, it was kind of a rarity to see it go through 6 rounds, to complete all 6 rounds. And so that kind of brought up the questions of, okay, so they said 6 rounds. Well, I don't know that how many times during a 2.5 hour game are you getting to 6 rounds?
I will say, in a lot of my games, now I don't play in many tournaments. I've only played in one. Now, I will say in Orlando, where I play, most of the people who play casually. Like, we have like casual play day. There's not a lot of places running organized tournaments. But still, when I play, I try to play at a competitive level, but also lighthearted. But it's like, in other words, I'm not playing deliberately sloppy, and I'm not homebrewing my own rules. I'm playing as if I were in a tournament. But we try to take it mostly serious, still make mistakes. But that being said, I will agree that most of my games do not come down to the 6th round. A fair amount do. It's not like a very rare thing, but I would say probably like 7 out of 10 games are called before that last round, where and it's like you could play it out to the 6th round, but we know, all right, I've got 3 objectives, you've only got 1 guy left. Mathematically, all I have to do is just run away. You can't do anything. Right. So why bother playing it out? And so we shake hands. No. If it were a tournament, the other person could just say, no, I insist we play it out because you might make a mistake and flee the battlefield or something like that. So, or I don't even think you're allowed to flee the battlefield in Legion legally. No. They changed that because of bounty and stuff. So yeah. Yep. Right. But my point stands is like, but yeah, I agree with you that a lot of games do end before turn 6. But that's also the same with Armada. A lot of games end before turn 6 as well. So there's so it could go either way, but I do think it works most of the way pretty good on a 3x3. Certain things, like any speed 3 vehicle with speeder that has to do the compulsory, doesn't work as well on a 3x3. Right. But pretty much everything else does if you really restrict the terrain. Snipers don't work as well on a 3x3. Yep.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think I mean, that's another great point. On a 3x3, it changes the value of snipers. Where right now on a 4x6 in the competitive field, they're very strong. They're one of the strongest units in the game. Yeah. But if you reduce the field size, that changes their value.
Yeah, I think snipers is one of the things. Now, let me ask you this because you're more in tune with the competitive player base than I am. But I feel like when I first started playing the game, I either had this rule wrong or the rule was changed, and I'm not sure exactly when. But basically the leader rule. Whereas, because I know a lot of people that I play with all played it the same way. If the leader is the only one I can see, then he dies. Somebody else then becomes the leader, but we didn't actually swap out that mini. Like let's say I've got a rebel trooper and a Z6, right? And it's just the Z6 and the leader. Well, I killed the leader because the Z6 was hiding. Well, the Z6 becomes the leader, but he doesn't put down his gun, so we never actually had to make that distinction. And I don't know if that was how it was supposed to be or not, but it really came to fruition when people started abusing strike teams and hiding the other mini who is not the sniper, somewhere where there was no line of sight. And so the unit could not possibly be defeated. And then the sniper just got teleported back, like immortal. Like that seems like that breaks immersion and is abuse almost to me, So I wonder if they can change that.
It absolutely is. And where the wording and the rules comes is that and it's similar with like medics and stuff, right? So the unit leader has to be the last mini to perish. And so that's where that rule came in. So it was like, okay, well, if he's the last one to perish then, and you can only see him, well, he moves then to where this other guy was.
So it's probably something that my group was just interpreting in a way that was more thematic, that it really never came down to that crazy scenario where somebody was abusing a mechanic and, here's how your sniper becomes immortal. So do you think it would make sense for them to just come up with, like, when you have to promote a battlefield commander, you have that other token that goes on there. Do you think it would make more sense for them to just have a unit leader token or ring that goes around a base or something like that to, say, okay, well, the Z6 is now the leader, but he doesn't have to put down his gun, or the snipe, for things like that. That's my suggestion. It seems like the cleanest way to initiate, to designate a leader without having to change the mini and thus the equipment that goes along with it.
Sure, and it's so inversely, right now, the way it's worded is strong for sniper strike teams, right? But if you do what you're suggesting, then Z6s become really strong, because if you're like, the Z6 can survive till the end, well, I'll just I'll do the same like terrain scoping where I'll just hide the Z6 and now I have a 6 white dice weapon.
Right,
still.
But you have to hide the Z6, and when the Z6 is hidden, also he can't throw his dice. And that's the distinction between the snipers, is because he can be out and aiming, and he's also invulnerable, because if you kill him, he's like Mario with the green mushroom. He's got the one up. He's like, I'll just respawn back here. So like at least if in the case of the Z6 being the leader, well, if he wants to shoot those dice, he has to place himself. And I think the only case where something like that would be really strong is maybe a unit that has Relentless or something like the Snowtroopers, for example. It's not Relentless, but it's the other one, where they could move, shoot, and then move back into cover, but they're only range 1, so, like, I feel like that's maybe a more balanced approach But so Luke and Alex, if you're listening, hey, maybe a token to designate a leader so we can get rid of the abuse for the strike teams. Because I like those strike teams if they work the thematic way. Like if you do shoot the sniper, the sniper should die. You know.
Yeah, I think yes, you're absolutely right. Well, and I think the game, you know, and this was kind of going to that conversation we were having before, where you have the competitive aspect, which has these weird rules like that what we're talking about right now. But then I think that doesn't come into play with the more casual gaming, right? Like I don't think the casual gamer is going to think to do some of that terrain scoping where I hide my one mini behind line of sight and keep my sniper out. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely many fixes that the game could have that could make it better. But I also think that some of the sniper problem, for instance, Tauntauns that just got released, they're gonna fix the sniper problem. They're gonna murder snipers.
Well, it depends on the terrain. They have to be able to reach them,
get to them. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So that's like, and I like to use really tall terrain on my boards. I have a lot of pieces that are. I like to have things that are higher than height 1 for for thematic reasons, for Boba Fett, for things like that. But also it's just kind of it's just fun. Plus, some of the terrain that I've been given a review happens to fit above there. So I'm like, hey, let's use this. This is going to look really cool. Or the old Hasbro Millennium Falcon is a little bit more than 6 inches tall. So like that one's a great one to just perch some people on top of. But yeah, so like there is a lot of ways to abuse that sort of stuff. So I would hope they do something because when you're playing casual, you can just agree like, hey, let's try not to abuse this.
Well, yeah, and what we were just talking about with potential other like modes for the game, whether it's a strike team or I think that'll take that out. And so anyone who, I think a lot of the high level competitive guys are probably fine with how the system works now. But maybe some of those other modes would change it, make it better for more casual players.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I haven't run into that problem a lot, but I have seen it happen in like 1 or 2 of my games, and I was just like, that doesn't seem right to me. Maybe I should go on a soapbox or something like that. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, they're done. You did it.
Absolutely. So there's some other things that maybe got not as spoiled from Alex with the smaller formats, but there was some other things like some other questions that were asked like. Like, are you going to do multiple versions of, like, are we going to get, like, the robed version of Obi-Wan? And they kind of, I didn't expect them to actually go into this because usually in a Q&A, when you ask people from FFG about, like, hey, what are you going to release next? They're like, well, it's our policy. We're not going to talk about unreleased future products. But Alex is just like, yeah, we'd love to do everything like that. We got 2 versions of Vader and 2 versions of Luke now, so we can do all kinds of stuff like this. But we probably want to do at least one of everybody first. He said Lando was overdue. That excites. I'm wearing Lando's shirt right now. Yeah. So and I would love to see Lando have some cool card play. Is there anybody that you're really looking forward to seeing?
Oh gosh.
I mean, there's probably quite a few, but yeah.
Yeah, I think mine and we talked about this a few episodes ago was the Rogue One. Like anybody from Rogue One, that's by far one of my favorite Star Wars movies.
Great movie.
Yeah, and so Cassian,
Bazin Chirrut now with the counterpart keyword, right?
Yeah, like any of those teams would be amazing just to fill it out. And I didn't watch the show a lot. Like I caught a few episodes that my son was watching of Rebels. Like I didn't get to watch it, but from the things that I've seen, like I do like the characters in that as well. And so it would be very interesting to see more of them. We have Sabine and they're dipping their toes into that stuff.
Yes.
So it's cool.
There's so much there, and then we have a whole other season of Clone Wars that's supposed to be launching before the end of the year, which I have to. It's funny because a lot of people are very, very big fans of the animated series for Clone Wars. I'm less because I watched it on Netflix when it was on there, and all the episodes were out of order. So I watched the whole thing out of order, got so confused, I got frustrated, and then stopped really paying attention. So I watched it all the way through, but I barely remember most of it because I remember just being confused and angry. But Rebels I watched religiously, and it grew on me, especially after the first season. It became one of my favorite shows ever. So I'm leaning more towards Rebels, but I know that once Disney Plus launches, I'm going to go back and watch Clone Wars again, and I'm really curious to see like if I'm going to see the whole thing through different eyes now, that there's so much more reason to be a fan. And especially, and I hope they release the Clone Wars before that season 7, so you can like watch everything else and get caught up. But we'll see.
So here, here's a question for you, because we've asked this a lot, and I don't know what your thoughts. So why do you think there hasn't been much from Solo out? Like, we have it in X-Wing, right? You have Lando's Falcon in X-Wing. Why not in Legion?
That's an interesting question, because Alex Davey did say he wanted to do Enfys Nest as his most wanted character, which tells me that's probably somebody that's not in development right now. I'm guessing, because he probably wouldn't. It could be. That's a really good question. I don't have an immediate answer for that, but I could certainly speculate that one of the things that I feel, and I don't know this for certain, so I'm speculating a little bit, but
Good. Let's speculate. Let's do it.
Speculating is fun, but I like to put that disclaimer out there before somebody's like, Crabbok said this is the way it is.
Let's do that. So, since Fifth Trooper is part of this as well, we are completely speculating right now.
Absolutely. So there, the disclaimer is done. But I feel like when FFG releases stuff, it's heavily influenced by Disney's marketing department, and they're like, no. Star Wars Rebels is the new hot thing, so we want you to make the Ghost for X-Wing, and if FFG wanted to make Lando, let's say, they're like, no, don't make Lando, we need you to make Han Solo because there's a Solo movie coming out, or something like that, right?
Sure.
So, not that verbatim. I think Lando has every right to come out very, very soon, but he was also very late in Imperial Assault's development and cycle as well, so like Lando, for some reason, it's one of the reasons I'm a big Lando fan, he gets underrepresented because he was way more important than his merchandise indicates. But
agreed.
Before I go off on too much of a tangent on Lando, I feel like right now FFG is probably under a lot of pressure to create Episode 9 content. Well, now most of that will probably be for X-Wing, since X-Wing already has those factions.
Sure.
But it wouldn't surprise me if they're in the early stages for making even more factions for First Order and Resistance. Not that we'll see in 2020 or maybe even 2021, but they're probably in the early development, the conceptual phase right now. And I'm glad they've waited as long as they have, because I would hate for them to flush something like this out before we even know what's in the last movie, and that we might get a new, like the Sith Trooper in Episode 9 might totally rebalance the way we look at the First Order, and then and they had that problem in X-Wing First Edition, where they released some stuff too early, didn't even have all the names for everybody, so everybody was like blue leader, red leader, blue ace, red ace, and all this generic name. So it really they gave Poe Dameron like a low pilot skill, basically said he was just a mediocre pilot, and we're like, then when the movie came out, we're like, that's wrong. He should be an ace. So my point is, like, I'm glad they're waiting, but I feel like a lot of that stuff is very much influenced, which I think kind of leads into the next big, I think the very next thing to come out is going to be The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And, we already know, and I think this was from one of your guys' podcasts where they talked about wanting to do sub-factions.
Yes.
And that was, like I said, I have listened to some of your stuff, and that was one of the most exciting things ever, is talking about I think he mentioned Geonosians and Gungans as an example.
Brought up.
As example. And now I've long been a proponent of Gungans. I have messaged Luke and Alex both. I'm like, I want a Gungan army. And they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, well, good for you. That's what you want?
No.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you want? Tell me more about your wish list, because I don't care.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough people that would at least get a kick out of a Gungan army, because it might be fun to have Commander Jar Jar's like, me's gonna activate the Boomba. I think it would be amazing. But Mandalorians would make an amazing sub-faction.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how the rulings for that would work, but I would love it if they did allow, at least in some cases, for you to pull people from different factions. Like if you had a Mandalorian sub-faction and you could pull Sabine from the Rebels and Boba Fett from the Empire, and then you could whether or not it comes with alternate cards for them, or I don't know how they're going to do it, but
I think we might have an example of how they'll do it. Look at C-3PO and R2, who got announced at the in flight, right? They're dual faction,
right? Now,
and so
is it going to be their card that has both symbols on it? Because I've seen the card, but I don't remember if it had both symbols or if there will be two cards.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't remember seeing two symbols, but yeah, I mean, they said it, they would be for the Republic and for the Rebels. So maybe
It's
that's how
true.
you do it, right? You could release, you could release some of these that are independent
Right.
of,
Yeah,
and then you can build an independent army.
that would be something else. I mean, goodness, like, getting off of Legion just for a minute, but to something similar with the Marvel game.
Yeah.
That is coming out, Crisis Protocol. They're letting you build your team with both heroes and villains. There's no restriction on what you can build, and I was like, that's very progressive and risky, but progressive of them, because now they're setting the stage right away. And like, you know what, whatever you want to do, you can do it. I think that could be a very attractive option. And
Do you think, so let me ask you this. I think maybe it's because the source material lends itself better. Like sometimes, in the comics or even in like TV shows, like I was talking about this with somebody the other day. We're watching a TV show and it was like, oh yeah, that person is either going to come back and be their number one enemy, or they're going to be forced to team up with them because there's a bigger enemy, right? And so that always, in the comics, that's always like, oh, Spider-Man had to team up with Craven because Venom's out of control or something, whatever.
Yes.
Carnage, right?
Right. Well, we saw a little bit of that in episode 8 with Rey and Kylo, and like, all right,
Yes.
now I don't want to get too much into the sequels because I know some people have very strong opinions, and initially I had some mixed emotions too, but I stand by, I like episode 8, but my favorite thing about episode 8 was that scene, because for me, like, and maybe it's from a kid watching Star Wars and seeing Darth Vader being the bad guy and finally redeeming himself at the end. I love it when a bad guy who's already established as a real badass like turns around and fights with the good guys, and you're like, oh, here he goes. So like when Kylo and Rey got back to back, or when Ben, or maybe he was Ben in that moment, who knows,
right? For the 10 minutes he was
but when they got back to back and they were fighting, I was just like, yes. I was on the edge of my seat, and the idea of being able to do stuff like that is just like, imagine, because I'm really hoping they do a Darth Maul, right? But I'm hoping and I'm sure they will. He's incredible. He'd be incredible for Legion, but like, and I could see multiple versions. I could see old Maul from like Rebels, but I really want that Episode 1 Phantom Menace Maul with the double bladed and like the karate poses and the kung fu Sith stuff. I want like, and thinking of the sculpting. The sculpts have gotten so much better.
I know. Well, okay, so bringing up Maul with cross faction, right? So here's an idea that would get you cross faction. So I'm circling back around to Solo, because I loved Solo.
I didn't really answer your question as much. I was kind of I was getting there. I feel like they probably didn't get the push from Disney.
I'm going to force you to answer it. So, so if you haven't seen Solo out there, earmuffs, because I'm going to spoil something. So Darth Maul, are you all right if I spoil this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm like,
So
normally it's 2 weeks, but I'll give people a month. But you're
pause,
past a year.
go watch it, and then come back and listen to what I'm about to say.
And it doesn't ruin the movie. It's a little Easter egg at the end, really. So.
Right. So Maul pops up at the end in a hologram, and he's the head of the Crimson Dawn, which is this huge crime syndicate. Mm-hmm. So you could have crime syndicates where you can now make Darth Maul cross-faction, like R2-D2.
Yeah.
You could put him in the crime syndicate. Who do they hire? Bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Right? And then you could have, like, even like from Rogue One, you could have Saw Gerrera and those rebels, like, working with the crime syndicate against the Empire. Like, that's very plausible.
I would even be fine if they wanted to use the exact same cards and just give them a premium for cost. Like, if you're going to hire, like, maybe you make some syndicate stuff, and if you build a full syndicate army, it's cheaper. Yeah. Right, but if you want to hire somebody outside of faction, 20 points tacked on right away. Oh, and if it's rebels, 30 points tacked on, like, or something like that. Like, but that could get complicated, and they don't want to go into the whole digital list builder like X-Wing, because it apparently costs them a lot of money to maintain that website. So I think they'll try to keep it as simple as possible, and the simplest way might simply be to make an alternate mini. Oh, you want Boba Fett as scum, or as a scum and villainy faction? Well, here's a Boba Fett as a scum and villainy faction. They may be simpler because then they also get to make a whole different pose, and then you could swip, like just like the Star Wars Celebration Vader, right? Like then you can have a different one you can swap in. You know.
Well, and they're clearly not opposed to that. I mean, they're right away are putting out Luke and Vader, right, as operatives. So
and that's exciting to me too. That Luke looks great.
So I once again torn. I'm so excited and I'm amazed that they're doing that. But like our question on our podcast was like, seems kind of early.
Yeah.
Like it seems like there could have been other stuff we could have done, but okay.
You think that's early? I thought Palpatine was early. I thought he was way early. Yeah. Like for somebody who was supposed to be like the end game villain, like the Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like he was wave 3, or like that was nuts. So
yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that was one of those cases where they maybe had some pushback from like, no, Disney's saying they want to promote this. Maybe it was a thing because they knew that Palpatine was going to have something to do with Episode 9, and then they wanted him available beforehand, or they wanted it. I don't know. That's really just speculation, but.
Disney, if you're listening, we want Mud Troopers. We want them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That would be perfect for that would be really good for Solo. Yeah, and there's a lot of other really cool characters in there too, like Beckett. Like people are homebrewing Beckett too. Like there's some really cool sculpts that people are posting pictures of, and Beckett was more popular than I thought.
Yeah, well, I think what happened was they got a lot of backlash when the movie came out, and listen, I'm going to go down a little theory hole here, but it was because Last Jedi people were kind of burnt about that, and I think Infinity War came out right before, like a month before Solo, and it's all Disney, and I don't think they put enough advertising into Solo, right?
I think if Solo had come out in December, whole different ball game.
Agreed. Yeah, and so anyway, and I love Solo. I think it's a great movie. It's not one of my favorite Star Wars movies, but it's up there. It's not in the dumpster like a lot of people had originally put it. And so Solo and Legion.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't share your exact concerns, but I mean I'm all for it. I'm all for it. The Mud Troopers also, they make a lot of sense. So with my thing with Solo, I thought it was actually a very, very well done movie. I just have problems with backstories when when a major movie comes out and your primary 3 characters, Lando, Chewie, and Han Solo, that nothing's going to happen to them. So, oh no, they're in the maw. Is this thing going to eat them? And I'm like, I'm never on the edge of my seat like I was in Episode 8, right? Like I love future stories where our hero's fate is uncertain. Or is this planet going to get blown up? So, like, but that's just me. That's my, my personal preference. But objectively,
how are you going to be about the Obi-Wan series on Disney Plus?
Well, that's not 100% confirmed yet. It's still like Disney hasn't announced it officially yet. But it sounds like it's much more of a reality than it was last year when it was being speculated. Yeah. But it all depends on what they do. Like my thing with that Obi-Wan, and that's actually a really cool thing because I wanted to talk about that a little bit too. If it's Ewan McGregor and he's just as Obi-Wan and the whole series is just him at the bar talking to the cantina boss and just telling stories, I would watch that because it's Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan.
Right.
However, it would be so much cooler if they were somehow able to take him and put him in actual danger. And like, how would you do that? Right? Like maybe it would involve that world. Like you said, you didn't watch as much Rebels, but there was like something that, like a world between worlds where people could kind of teleport through time, and so if they could somehow remove him like through the Force, like and place him in another time where it's almost like an alternate reality, well then I'm on the edge of my seat because let's see if he's gonna make it or
right.
But still, like I'm sure it will be good, and that will be because he's such a powerhouse of a character and an actor. It's going to overwhelm my concerns. And Solo still, I didn't dislike Solo. I just it would have been better had it been about somebody else that maybe I didn't know if they lived or died.
Yeah, I guess so. For me, for instance,
like an Enfys Nest movie, I would love to see.
Yeah. Okay. So they're gonna have like a Cassian movie on. He's gonna have his own on Disney Plus TV show, right?
Exactly. It's the same problem. Like I hope that show very quickly introduces a whole slew of other characters that quickly become the focus.
Right. Well, but for me, I'm interested. I want to know, because Cassian was kind of a jerk. In the beginning of Rogue One, he was definitely, if he comes to Legion, like he would be the Rebels' first bounty hunter, I think. And so
I thought maybe Saw could do something like that too.
oh yeah, maybe Saw too, but like, because I mean, he kills that dude like in the first act of Rogue One.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He was now like it'd be interesting to see what drove him to be that
Yeah.
jaded, maybe. Sure.
Exactly, like, oh yeah, he started off as this nice kid, and then all this stuff happened to him.
There's definitely value there. I prefer stories where we don't know the end, but
Sure.
it doesn't mean I won't watch it. I'll still watch it and I'll still love it. It's Star Wars. I went to see I didn't see Solo twice in the theater. I only saw it one time, but I did buy it on DVD. So I have it. It's a movie I enjoyed, but I also like more if there's epic space battles, and there wasn't really an epic space. There was only like that one little space scene, and it was kind of so.
So what's your top 3 rank for the movies then?
Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Well, no. Actually, I'm going to say Episode 8 is number 1, then Return of the Jedi, then Empire Strikes Back.
So Last Jedi?
Last Jedi, number 1, and that's with the caveat that it took me maybe 4 viewings before I got there, because each time I watched it, I began to see more, and I began to grow a very different appreciation for Last Jedi. And it exists almost outside of the way I characterize the other movies. But yeah, and so I put that because I totally get why other people didn't like it, and I also throw it in, even though it's my number 1, it's still got its problems. It's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, and it's got things that I really don't like a whole lot of the Canto Bite stuff. Don't like that. It could have been done differently, but depending on what happens in maybe Episode 9, maybe some of that stuff will pay off, and maybe we'll be like, oh, it was a good thing they did that. I don't know, but the things it did really, really well. It did so well that I put it as my number 1. Like, just one example of that was the Praetorian Guard fight, which was maybe my favorite scene in all of Star Wars. Although, granted, that space battle in Rogue One was really, really, really phenomenal too. So there's, it's tough to rank them, but Return of the Jedi over Empire Strikes Back is a tough one for me as well, because a lot of people didn't like Return of the Jedi that much, but when I was a kid, that was the first one I saw. So I have a special emotional bond with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So
right,
mine
what's
are
your
odd.
top 3?
Yeah, mine are odd too. So mine is Force Awakens, Rogue One, A New Hope. Those are my top 3.
Ooh, that is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I've never heard somebody say Force Awakens as their top. Now, why is that?
So okay, after the prequels and at becoming an adult, I kind of was losing, like, I love Star Wars, and I was starting to lose the magic a little bit as an adult. And when I saw Force Awakens, I saw that at least 6 times in the theater. I loved that movie, and it just got that, like, I don't know, it just built that excitement back up in me. And, like, I thought Han and Leia were great in that movie. I liked Rey and Finn and Poe, and I loved the new bad guy. Like, this is before we knew much about Kylo Ren. Like, we knew, and then everything with his dad. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was a great movie for this generation, to get everybody back in. It got me excited. And then, of course, Rogue One.
Rogue One doesn't even need an explanation. It's universally liked,
movie.
And it's also a contender for my top 3. My only problem with Rogue One is that I love the last 20 minutes so much. Anytime I stick it in, I just skip to the last 20 minutes, so I discount. I discount so much of the movie.
But yeah, and then A New Hope, because I don't know. I love Empire and Return, but like New Hope was just innocent. Like, it's just a pure adventure story from beginning to end, and you don't need to know that there's more coming. Yeah. You don't need to know that there's more coming. You don't need to know anything. You can just watch A New Hope on its own, and it's just a fantastic adventure movie.
Yeah, it's the hero's journey. It's a good movie. It's not in one of my favorites though, simply because I'm very silly about things. But I am a big film quality. Like, I like things that are shot on new film and that look like 4K, high resolution type things. And so that, like, when a film is very dated, that's something that I rank it. Doesn't mean I dismiss the movie. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I would actually love if they were to like maybe recast the original or remake the original Star Wars trilogy with modern special effects and new actors and stuff. Like, I know that sounds like blasphemy to some people, but I would love to see it. Just
not
on its
some
own,
people.
in a vacuum.
To me, it sounds like blasphemy. So,
but there's certain, like, have you seen the Sebastian Stan who, as like cast as as Luke Skywalker? Like, he looks perfect, and I was like, let's try that. I'll say this: I don't know if your kids are into it or not, but YouTube Kids has these like Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures.
Oh, those are amazing.
Right, and well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like a fresh look at the original trilogy with like mod. Now, granted, it's animated in that case, but like if they did the original trilogy animated with that very crisp picture quality, wouldn't that would be pretty cool, right?
It would be. So, would you do like a shot-for-shot remake, or would you like let them adventure a little bit?
I'm okay with both. I would love to see a shot-for-shot remake. Trying to be true to the originals, and the only things maybe they change are like in the original version, like there were some things that were written in English instead of Arabesh and things like that. So you could fix
maybe update some of the space battles. And
right,
stuff like
you could update a few things that like that animation does. It kind of adds a little extra flair where it's necessary. Like the Vader versus Obi-Wan duel, you could make a little more exciting, like some fans have done.
Oh yeah, that fan-made Obi-Wan Vader duel was amazing.
It was crazy, but. I would also love to see a what if. You know, Disney's doing what ifs for Marvel right now. I want them to do what ifs for Star Wars, and the one that I would love to see, and most of it revolves around the original trilogy, and most of it you can fit into A New Hope. How would Star Wars be different if Luke and Leia switched places, and it was Prince Luke of Alderaan and Farm Girl Leia, and how would that have changed? You know, and you can do a whole lot from that. And there's a lot of other things you can be like, if this one decision was slightly different. What if Obi-Wan and Stan is on Mustafar standing there against Anakin and lays down his lightsaber and says, "I will join you," or "You're my brother to the end," and then they go and face the Emperor together. Not face him, but like Obi-Wan decides he's going to become a reluctant Sith also, and so like what happens then? Is Obi-Wan like, are they going to stay friends forever, or or
does Anakin, instead of betraying the Jedi, he kills Palpatine on the spot? And then what happens with the Jedi Order? Does the Sith rise again?
Yeah, like or who else is out there, or does then Anakin take over and become like Palpatine, and he doesn't have that metal body? Like, there's a lot of things, and you can come up with all kinds of stuff. Maybe Padme ends up doing something crazy, and I don't know. There's a lot of like you can extrapolate, because it's like this ripple effect. You just change one little thing, and boom, 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 it goes crazy. So, but yeah, I could definitely see a lot of that stuff going different. Like my thing is like maybe Luke. He still wanted to be a pilot, but he's on Alderaan now, so he's actually a member of the Empire. He's a senator, right? So maybe he decides, you know what, I'm not gonna continue with politics. I'm gonna enlist and be a pilot, or I'm gonna go to the academy and become a. So when Leia gets captured and she's with Han and Obi-Wan and the Falcon in Luke's place, Luke is actually a pilot on that Star Destroyer, and he's the one shooting them down, and then they have this connection, and like so I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but like there's a lot of cool things you could do with that, and especially if it's just in a what if it's in a microcosm, you can have some fun with it. But I would love to see more alternate universe stuff from Disney, and then also make some movies in the Legends universe. Do Thrawn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, or Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy as it was. There's time.
That would be interesting.
There's time. A lot of people would love that. You would bring back some of those jaded fans too. So. All right, so let's see. I got a couple more Star Wars questions for you. I was going to ask your top 3, but you beat me to the punch there. What are you most looking forward to out of, I guess, in the next year of what we know of with Star Wars? We've talked a little bit about The Mandalorian. Episode 9 is coming out, and then there's the other stuff coming out on Disney Plus. Resistance is ending, probably to make way for something else, that'll take its place.
Really looking forward to Mandalorian. But, Episode 9, like, all the kind of, not rumors, but, like, the things, like, J.J. Abrams has said and stuff have really piqued my interest. Like, especially the one where he said he's wrapping up, like, the whole storyline. So, like, part of that's, like, Rebels, too, and Clone Wars, and, like, who are we going to see? Like, how do you wrap up all of that in one movie? Like, it just seems
Oh,
insane.
I thought that was just like the whole storyline, meaning all of the unanswered questions that people wanted answered in episode 8. Like, who we know that the Knights of Ren are going to be in it. That excites me.
Right.
And so I want to know more about that.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought he meant like the whole Skywalker saga was going to get wrapped up. That's what he was wrapping up in 9. So that I don't know. It's going to be crazy.
Well, that would still be separate from Rebels. They try to keep Rebels kind of separate from the Skywalker saga. So it wouldn't mean... And I think that's strictly Dave Filoni territory, because they asked Timothy Zahn about where Thrawn and Ezra are right now. And he's like, I have no idea. That is all totally up to Dave Filoni. So... Well,
but, I mean, there was some crossover, though, right? Because Vader was in Rebels. So, like, you would have Ahsoka and maybe... I don't know.
But he wasn't in. He wasn't like the star. He wasn't like the focus of the show. If anything, it was more about Tarkin and Thrawn in the later season. Tarkin at the beginning transitioned over to Thrawn taking over as being the big bad for Rebels. So, if you ever get a chance, rewatch all of Rebels. It does not disappoint. Definitely.
I have to watch it for the first time. I've I've caught episodes here, and I of course read about it just because I like to know. But yeah, I'll have to watch it.
Oh, and a lot of the voice acting is really well done too. Like, they even got Frank Oz to come back and do Yoda, and so like things like that are just like really, really nice touches. But very quality show, and I know we're getting late, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. But you guys are also doing a giveaway right now, aren't you? Do you want to plug that, or?
So it actually ended today. We announced it today. Yeah.
Oh well, all right. Okay. Well, awesome. All right. Well, all right.
We gave away a Clone Wars core set.
Well, but stay tuned for. You never know what the next giveaway will be.
So yeah, we'll have another one. I'm sure. We always get something crazy going on.
All right. Well, yeah. So guys, check out Fifth Trooper. I will have links down in the comment section. I want to thank you guys, or thank you so much for coming on here and talking with me and talking to everybody for the whole shebang. And thank you so much. And gosh, I feel like there's something else I should be saying, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, the pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having us on your platform. I appreciate it, and this was a ton of fun. So this was great.
All right. Well, that's all I've got. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.